Before I share my story, let me ask you, what would you do if the child you raised, the one you sacrificed everything for, shut you out of his new life the moment he found success? I thought I was watching my son's dreams come true. I thought I'd be part of his new world. But the day he banned me from his mansion, I realized I'd been written out of the story I helped build. This isn't just a story about pride or property. It's about the moment you decide to stand up for your own worth, even if it means facing the pain of being left behind. So settle in, because what happened next changed not just my family, but the way I see myself forever. The day my son banned me from his new mansion, I realized I'd spent my whole life building a home for someone who no longer wanted me in it. It started with a key, not the kind you slip onto a ring and forget about, but the kind you hold in your hand, turning it over and over, feeling the weight of everything it represents. My son, Daniel, had just bought his first house, a mansion, really, perched on a hill with a view of the city lights. He'd worked hard for it, climbing the ladder from a cramped apartment to a penthouse, and finally to this sprawling estate with marble floors and a driveway longer than the street I grew up on. I was proud of him. I'd watched him chase his dreams, sacrifice sleep and weekends, pour his heart into a business that everyone said would never work. I'd cheered him on, packed his lunches, paid his bills when he was starting out. I'd prayed for him, worried for him, loved him with a fierceness that sometimes scared me. When he invited me to see the house, I was nervous. I spent hours picking out the right dress, the right shoes, the right words. I wanted him to know how proud I was, how happy I was for him, how much I still wanted to be part of his life. The house was even more beautiful than I'd imagined. The front door opened onto a grand foyer, sunlight streaming through stained glass, the air scented with fresh flowers. Daniel greeted me with a hug, his smile wide, his eyes shining. "Welcome home, Mom," he said, leading me through the rooms, showing me the kitchen, the library, the garden. He pointed out the details, the custom cabinets, the imported tile, the chandelier he'd picked out himself. I listened, nodding, asking questions, trying to keep up with the whirlwind of his new life. I watched as he moved through the house, confident and at ease, the boy I'd raised now a man with a world of his own. After the tour, we sat in the sunroom, sipping tea, the city spread out below us. "I'm so proud of you, Daniel," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You've built something amazing." He smiled, but there was a distance in his eyes. "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you." I reached for his hand, squeezing it tight. "I hope you know you can always count on me. This will always be your home, but you'll always have a place in mine, too." He nodded, but didn't say anything. The weeks passed, and I tried to find my place in Daniel's new world. I called, left messages, sent texts. Sometimes he answered, sometimes he didn't. When he did, he was polite but distracted, always busy, always on his way to a meeting, always promising to call back. I tried to be understanding. I told myself he was just busy, that he needed time to adjust, that he'd come back to me when things settled down. But deep down, I felt the chill of something I couldn't name. One Saturday, I decided to surprise him. I baked his favorite cookies, packed them in a tin, and drove to the mansion. The gates were closed, the driveway empty. I pressed the intercom, my heart pounding. A voice crackled through the speaker. "Can I help you?" "It's Anna, Daniel's mother. I just wanted to drop something off." There was a pause, then the voice, cold, unfamiliar. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Turner. Mr. Turner isn't accepting visitors today." I stared at the speaker, my hands shaking. "Can you just tell him I'm here? I won't stay long." Another pause. "I'm sorry. Mr. Turner's instructions are clear. No visitors without an appointment." I stood there, the tin of cookies heavy in my hands, the sun beating down on the driveway. I felt like a stranger at my own son's door. I turned and walked back to my car, tears stinging my eyes. That night I called Daniel. He didn't answer. I left a message, my voice trembling. "I just wanted to see you, sweetheart. I hope everything's all right. I love you." He didn't call back. The next morning, the phone rang. I answered, my heart leaping, hoping it was Daniel. But it was a lawyer. "Mrs. Turner, this is Mr. Harris, representing your son, Daniel Turner. I'm calling to inform you that Mr. Turner would prefer you not visit his residence without prior notice. He appreciates your understanding and asks that all future communication be directed through me." I sat in the kitchen, the phone pressed to my ear, the world spinning around me. I realized then that I'd spent my whole life building a home for someone who no longer wanted me in it. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking, the lawyer's words echoing in my ears. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the tin of cookies I'd baked for Daniel, the ones he'd never taste. The house felt colder, emptier, as if a door had closed that I'd never be able to open again. I tried to make sense of it. I replayed every conversation, every visit, every moment I'd shared with my son over the past year. I thought about the sacrifices I'd made, working 2 jobs to put him through college, selling my mother's jewelry to help him start his business, staying up late to help him study, to listen, to love. I thought about the little boy who used to run to me with scraped knees and wild stories, the teenager who'd confided in me about his first crush, the young man who'd hugged me tight before leaving for the city, promising he'd never forget where he came from. I wondered when that promise had been broken. The days blurred together. I went through the motions, making coffee, feeding the cat, watering the plants. I called Ruth, my sister, every night, needing to hear her voice, needing to know I wasn't alone. "He's just overwhelmed, Anna," she said, her voice gentle. "He's got a lot on his plate, give him time." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that Daniel was just busy, that he'd come back to me when things settled down. But deep down, I knew something had changed. I tried to keep busy. I volunteered at the library, joined a book club, started taking long walks in the park. I baked for the neighbors, helped Leela with her garden, spent weekends with Ruth and her family. I told myself I was moving on, that I was building a life of my own. But every time I passed Daniel's mansion on my way to the grocery store, every time I saw his name in the news, every time I heard his voice on the radio, my heart ached with longing and loss. One afternoon, I ran into Leela at the market. She hugged me, her eyes full of concern. "I heard about Daniel," she said softly. "I'm so sorry, Anna, you don't deserve this." I smiled, blinking back tears. "I just want him to be happy. I just want to know what I did wrong." She squeezed my hand. "You didn't do anything wrong. Some people forget where they came from. Some people need to lose everything before they remember what matters." That night, I sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the garden. I thought about Daniel, about the life we'd shared, about the dreams I'd had for him. I thought about the mansion on the hill, the gates that kept me out, the lawyer who spoke for my son. I realized then that I had a choice. I could keep waiting for Daniel to come back to me, or I could start building a life that was mine. I wiped my eyes, squared my shoulders, and went inside. The next morning, I woke up determined to do something for myself. I made a list of things I'd always wanted to try: painting, yoga, learning to play the piano. I signed up for a class at the community center, bought a set of watercolors, and spent the afternoon in the garden, letting the sun warm my face. But even as I tried to move forward, Daniel was never far from my mind. I checked my phone constantly, hopping for a message, a call, a sign that he was thinking of me. But the silence stretched on, heavy and unbroken. One afternoon, as I was leaving the grocery store, I saw Daniel's car parked outside a cafe. I hesitated, my heart pounding, then walked inside. He was sitting at a table by the window, laughing with a group of people I didn't recognize. He looked happy, relaxed, at ease in a way I hadn't seen in years. I stood there for a moment, watching him, wanting to go over and say hello. But something held me back. I realized then that I didn't belong in his new world, not anymore. That evening, Ruth called. "You sound down, Anna. Did something happen?" I told her about seeing Daniel, about the way he'd looked right through me, about the ache that wouldn't go away. She was quiet for a moment. "You can't force him to come back, Anna. All you can do is live your life. He'll realize what he's lost, sooner or later." I nodded, wiping my eyes. "I hope you're right." A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Daniel's lawyer. "Dear Mrs. Turner, As per Mr. Turner's instructions, we ask that you refrain from contacting him directly. Any communication should be directed through our office. We appreciate your understanding. I stared at the letter, my hands shaking. I felt a wave of anger rise in my chest, anger at Daniel, at the lawyer, at myself for letting things get this far. I called Ruth, reading her the letter through my tears. She was furious. He can't do this, Anna. He can't just erase you from his life. I shook my head, my voice trembling. He already has. That night, I sat in the living room, staring at the family photos on the mantel. I thought about the years I'd spent raising Daniel, the sacrifices I'd made, the love I'd given. I thought about the mansion on the hill, the gates that kept me out, the lawyer who spoke for my son. I realized then that I was done waiting. I was done begging for a place in Daniel's life. It was time to start living for myself. I threw myself into my new routines. I painted in the mornings, took long walks in the afternoons, and spent evenings with Ruth and Leela, laughing over old stories and new dreams. I started volunteering at the local food bank, finding comfort in helping others, in being needed, in making a difference. But the ache for Daniel never fully left. Every time I passed his mansion, every time I saw his name in the news, every time I heard his voice on the radio, I felt the sting of loss all over again. One afternoon, as I was leaving the community center, I saw Daniel's car parked outside. My heart leapt, hope and dread warring inside me. I watched as he got out, talking on his phone, his face serious. I hesitated, then walked over, my hands trembling. "Daniel," I called, my voice soft. He turned, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Mom, what are you doing here?" I smiled, trying to keep my voice steady. "I volunteer here. I didn't know you were involved." He nodded, glancing away. "I'm making a donation for the new wing." I felt a surge of pride, mixed with sadness. "That's wonderful, Daniel. Your father would be proud." He looked at me then, his eyes softening. "Thanks, Mom." For a moment, I thought he might say more. But then his phone rang, and he turned away, his voice brisk, his posture stiff. I watched him go, my heart aching. I realized then that I couldn't force my way back into his life. I could only live mine as best I could. That night, I found another letter from Daniel's lawyer in my mailbox. "Dear Mrs. Turner, as per Mr. Turner's instructions, please refrain from attending any events at his residence. This includes family gatherings, holidays, and public functions. We appreciate your cooperation." I stared at the letter, my hands shaking. I felt a wave of anger and betrayal wash over me. I called Ruth, reading her the letter through my tears. She was furious. "He can't do this, Anna. He can't just erase you from his life." I shook my head, my voice trembling. "He already has." I sat on the porch that night, staring at the stars, the letter in my lap. I thought about the years I'd spent building a life for Daniel, the sacrifices I'd made, the love I'd given. I thought about the mansion on the hill, the gates that kept me out, the lawyer who spoke for my son. I realized then that I was done waiting. I was done begging for a place in Daniel's life. It was time to start living for myself. The next morning, I woke up with a new sense of resolve. I made myself a real breakfast, eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and sat at the table with the newspaper, just like I used to before life got so complicated. I decided I would not let Daniel's choices define my days. I would not let his lawyer's letters dictate my happiness. I called Ruth and told her I wanted to take a trip. Just a weekend away, somewhere I've never been. She was delighted. "Let's do it, Anna. You deserve a break." We booked a little bed-and-breakfast by the coast, packed our bags, and left the next morning. The sea air was bracing, the sound of the waves soothing. We walked on the beach, collected shells, ate seafood at a tiny restaurant with checkered tablecloths. For the first time in years, I felt free. We talked about everything: our childhood, our parents, the dreams we'd let go of, and the ones we still held close. Ruth reminded me that I was more than just Daniel's mother. I was a woman with her own story, her own worth, her own future. When I got home, I found a message on my answering machine. It was from Daniel's lawyer. Mrs. Turner, this is Mr. Harris. Please call me at your earliest convenience. There's a matter regarding your son's estate that requires your attention. My heart pounded. Estate? Daniel was young, healthy, at the height of his career. What could have happened? I called Ruth, panic rising in my chest. What if something happened to him? What if he's sick? She calmed me down, promising to come over and sit with me while I called the lawyer back. When I finally reached Mr. Harris, his tone was formal but not unkind. Mrs. Turner, I wanted to inform you that your son has made some changes to his will. He's named you as the executor, and there are some documents that require your signature. I was stunned. But he banned me from his house. He hasn't spoken to me in months. Mr. Harris hesitated. I can't speak to his motivations, ma'am, but he was very clear about your role. He said you were the only person he trusted to handle his affairs if anything happened to him. I hung up, my mind spinning. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That night I sat on the porch, the documents spread out on the table in front of me. I read through them, my heart pounding. Daniel had left everything in order: trusts, investments, instructions for the house, the business, even the family photos. He'd written a letter, too. Mom, I know things have been hard between us. I know I've hurt you. But I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. I'm sorry for shutting you out. I'm sorry for letting pride get in the way. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Please take care of the things that matter. Please forgive me. Love. Daniel. I pressed the letter to my chest, tears streaming down my face. I realized then that forgiveness wasn't just for him. It was for me, too. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, meetings, and memories. I met with Mr. Harris at his office, signing documents, reviewing Daniel's wishes, learning about the details of his estate. It was overwhelming. So many accounts, so many decisions, so many reminders of the life Daniel had built, the life I'd been shut out of. But as I worked through the papers, I found small comforts. Daniel had left instructions for everything: how to care for the house, who to call for repairs, even a list of charities he wanted to support. He'd thought of everything, right down to the last detail. I realized then that, in his own way, Daniel had been trying to make amends. He'd been trying to take care of me, even after pushing me away. Word spread quickly through the family. Some relatives called to offer condolences, others to ask about the will, a few to gossip about the mansion and the money. I tried to be gracious, to answer questions, to keep the peace. But I also set boundaries, refusing to let anyone make me feel guilty for the choices Daniel had made. Ruth and Leela were my anchors. They helped me sort through Daniel's things, pack up his clothes, decide what to keep and what to give away. We laughed over old photos, cried over forgotten letters, found comfort in the memories we shared. Emily came home from college for the summer, her presence a balm to my aching heart. She helped me plant a new garden, repaint the kitchen, fill the house with music and laughter. We talked about Daniel, about the good times and the hard times, about the lessons we'd learned. One afternoon, as we sat on the porch, Emily turned to me, her eyes shining. "Do you think Dad would be proud of us?" I smiled, squeezing her hand. I know he would. He'd be proud of how we've taken care of each other, of how we've learned to let go and to hold on to what matters. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I miss him, Mom, every day." I hugged her close, feeling the steady beat of her heart against mine. "Me too, sweetheart, me too." As the summer faded into fall, I found myself looking forward to the future, not with fear, but with hope. I knew there would still be hard days, still be moments of doubt and regret. But I also knew that I was strong, that I was brave, that I was enough, just as I was. I was still here, I was still standing, and I was ready for whatever came next. As the leaves turned gold and the air grew crisp, I found myself settling into a new rhythm. The mansion, once a symbol of Daniel's distance, became a place of quiet healing. I spent mornings in the sunroom, reading or painting, letting the light warm my face. I opened the doors to family and friends, hosting Sunday dinners, birthday parties, and quiet evenings with Ruth and Leela. The house was no longer a fortress. It was a home again. I started a scholarship in Daniel's name at the local high school, using part of his estate to help kids who reminded me of him. Ambitious, stubborn, a little lost, but full of promise. I volunteered at the community center, teaching art classes to children and seniors alike. I found joy in giving back, in building something that would last beyond my own lifetime. Emily flourished, too. She brought friends home from college, filled the house with music and laughter, and even started dating a kind young man who helped me fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen. We talked openly about Daniel, about grief, about the ways we'd both changed. She told me she was proud of me, that she admired my strength, that she hoped to be as brave as I was someday. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emily turned to me, her voice soft. "Do you ever regret anything, Mom? About Daniel, about the mansion, about how things ended?" I thought about it for a long moment. I regret the time we lost. I regret the words we never said. But I don't regret loving him, and I don't regret standing up for myself, even when it hurt. She nodded, her eyes shining. "I'm glad you did. I'm glad you're my mom." I hugged her close, feeling the steady beat of her heart against mine. "Me too, sweetheart, me too." As the holidays approached, I decorated the house with Emily, stringing lights and baking cookies, filling the rooms with warmth and laughter. We invited Ruth and Leela, Margaret from the community center, and a few neighbors who had become like family. We shared stories, played games, and toasted to new beginnings. I realized then that healing wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about honoring it, learning from it, and choosing to move forward with hope. One afternoon, I received a letter from Daniel's lawyer. Inside was a note Daniel had written before he died, one I hadn't seen before. "Mom, if you're reading this, I hope you know how much I love you. I'm sorry for the pain I caused, for the distance I put between us. I hope you find happiness, peace, and the courage to keep living your life to the fullest. Love always. Daniel." I pressed the letter to my heart, tears streaming down my face. I realized then that forgiveness wasn't just for Daniel, it was for me, too. As the new year began, I looked around at the life I'd rebuilt, the house filled with light. The laughter of friends and family, the quiet joy of ordinary days, and felt a deep, abiding sense of hope. I wasn't the same woman I'd been before Daniel shut me out. I was stronger, wiser, more compassionate with myself and with the people I loved. I knew that life would never be perfect, that there would always be pain and loss and disappointment. But I also knew that I could survive, that I could rebuild, that I could find joy in the small, everyday moments. I was still here, I was still standing, and I was ready for whatever came next. Sometimes, the people we love most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. I never imagined my own son would build a mansion and then build a wall between us, or that I'd have to find my own way back to myself after being shut out of his life. But life has a way of teaching us that our worth isn't measured by the doors we're allowed through, but by the love and dignity we carry with us, no matter where we go. If you've ever been left behind by someone you raised, or if you've ever had to start over after being pushed aside, I hope you know you're not alone. Healing isn't quick and it isn't easy. But with time, honesty, and a little bit of grace, it is possible. Sometimes the real strength is in letting go, not just of the people who hurt you, but of the guilt and shame you never deserved to carry. Would you have waited for your child to come back, or would you have found your own way forward? Have you ever had to choose between holding on and letting go? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and share it with someone who might need a little hope tonight. Thank you for listening and for being part of this family. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, even after the deepest heartbreak, you can still choose to begin again.